We have seen a dramatic increase recently in brazen smash and grab thefts. They're highly organized and pretty shocking. Take a look. Yeah, here's an example of one. I mean, we've seen reports just this week from Philadelphia, and before that, LA and London. We're also seeing a similar trend in smash and grab and dramatic increase in shoplifting here in Canada. Joining me now with a closer look at what's happening is retail analyst Doug Stevens. Good morning to you. Pretty shocking video that we're looking at.
Yeah, it is, and we're seeing more and more of it with the advent of security cameras now in more and more places, and certainly with mobile devices everywhere. All of this is kind of front and center for all of us to see.
So let's talk about numbers. Numbers for this year, they have not been released just yet, but data from StatsCan shows that while shoplifting rose by 31% in 2022, the rates haven't yet exceeded pre-pandemic levels. So what is new then about this crime that we're seeing?
Well, I mean, I think there are a few things, and you're right, the numbers can be somewhat murky, both in Canada and in the U.S. as well. And some of that, too, is, we're relying on retailers to tell us what their experience is. So some of this is anecdotal as well. But you cite good numbers there, that there is an increase in shoplifting. We know, for example, that organized crime is definitely taking a heavier hand in this. It is certainly easier to organize people. And let's face it, it's easier today to fence merchandise. As someone here at Retail Profit said when we were talking about this, it's easier to fence merchandise today through multiple marketplaces, whether that's Facebook Marketplace or somewhere else. So it's easier to dispose of stolen merchandise. But we also know that inflation is weighing very heavily on average Canadians as well, and perhaps turning some otherwise honest people to sort of a last resort.
Yeah, desperate measures. Crime is becoming more sophisticated, this type of crime. What are some examples of that?
Well, I mean, what we're seeing in the U.S. is certainly more organized rings of criminals. As you are showing right now, these rings of people descend on a store, and it's a sort of a swarming of the retail operation. And the key thing in this too, and this applies to both sides of the border, is that we have backlog court systems as well. So when you get all these people descending on a store, even if one of them is arrested and they go into the court system, petty crime right now is being dismissed out of the court system because the courts are simply so backlogged with other cases that they can't take on these kinds of cases. And that just feeds into the hands of organized crime. It becomes a revolving door.
Right. They're like, I'm not really going to get in trouble, so why not do this, right? The Retail Council of Canada warns that shoplifters cost the retail sector $5 billion every year. What kind of effect are those losses having on the prices that we're seeing in stores?
Well, again, it's another justification. I mean, first it was supply chain problems, and we were hearing that was weighing heavily on prices and causing the price of just about everything to rise. Now we have this new, sort of phenomenon to lean on as well, that, yeah, sure, there's a cost, and that cost is going to be reflected in higher prices to consumers. It's certainly, what we do know is that it's not being reflected in lower profits at retailers. We're not seeing terribly low profitability at retailers. So these are costs that get passed on to you and I and everyone else.
When I look at these videos, Doug, and all of these people rushing in, like sometimes up to 100 people rushing in, I go, like, what can be done here? What is on the table in terms of suggestions?
Well, I think that, first of all, we've heard anecdotally from some business leaders in the U.S. that even installing security guards and having manned, security inside the store isn't really doing much, because all the security guards are doing is, phoning 911 if something happens. What I do think is potentially on the horizon, of course, barely a day goes by that we don't talk about AI. But certainly AI is being woven now into loss prevention, and potentially being able to give retailers a little bit of a heads up as to what sort of behaviors might actually, sort of become precursors to this kind of activity in their stores. In other words, could AI potentially be able to look for behaviors that are indicative of shoplifting and actually prevent it before it happens?
That is really interesting, a conversation that we have to expand on another day. Doug Stevens, good to talk to you. Thanks.
You too. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.